Hey everybody, welcome to another Feature Friday. So I completely forgot in my graphical scheduling application series to talk about the administration applications that exist for it as well. So we're going to cover each one of them very quickly. You'll have to explore them on your own. But I didn't want to forget that there is an administrative aspect to the graphical scheduling applications. So let's take a look. Okay, so here we go. So I have logged into an instance of Manage, Application Suite 8.11 specifically. And I go over here to Administration, and I roll down, and I see the module called Scheduler Administration. And I'll just open that up and hover here for just a moment. So in one of the previous videos that I did, I covered the appointment book manager, so I'm not going to cover that one here specifically. All right, so let's open Scheduling Alternate Resources. So this is done schedule by schedule, so I'm just going to choose the all work schedule that we have in the system. And then I wish to modify the availability of my resources. So I choose Modify. And you'll notice that the schedule name and this column here called Project are the same. My general schedule here is 6 to 4, Monday through Friday. I have these different crafts. And let's say, for example, I have some additional availability over the holiday season. So I would come over here for Technicians, over to the Add Alternate Availability. And I'm going to go ahead and get myself in the right year here. And to make sure that I'm over November 23rd. And so between that date and the 24th, I'm going to say that I have an additional 2 technicians that are available. And I click OK. It simply adds a row to the availability. So now when I am looking at people's availability over in the graphical applications, I would see this additional set of resources that are available to me. And then when I'm done with what I'm doing, I would just simply come over here and say Save. And that's it for scheduling alternate resources. Okay, configuring tooltips. Well, it's probably a good idea to figure out what a tooltip actually is. So I'm just going to open up graphical scheduling here. And I'm going to choose that all work schedule yet again. Go to graphical view. And give it a moment to render. And what is a tooltip? So anytime that you hover over something that is in the graphical view, like for example right here, then a tooltip will show up. So you have the ability to make changes to how those tooltips are presented. So let's go look. Back to Administration, Scheduler Administration, Configure Tooltips. And the first thing to do is refresh the list. And these are the templates that the tooltips are generated from. And I'm just going to choose Activity here just as an example. And you can see that it is a little bit of a HTML coding effort if you wish the tooltips to look differently than what is on the screen by default. You can make your changes. You can preview the tooltips. Certainly if you've made a change, you can then save them, or I'm sorry, save is over here. Click the Save button, and then if you mess everything up, you can always go back and reset it to default. Pretty straightforward, but it does require some HTML coding if you want to make changes. Okay, the next one is configuring the weather forecast. So you can bring in weather information from weather.com into Maximo. In particular, some of the graphical applications have the ability to open up a weather forecast. So let's configure a weather forecast. We'll fill the list here with all the different applications that have that capability in it. I'll just choose graphical scheduling here. And a couple of things that you can do here. One is you enable the weather as well as the back panel so that you're able to see it in a different view there. And then for the different levels or different time frames of weather information, the current weather, the hourly weather, the daily weather, you've got quite a bit of control as to what elements of the weather can be presented. And when you get this all done, then of course you can click Weather Preview to give you a sense of what you're going to see. However, you will need to have an API from weather.com as well as any security certificates on your server so that the weather server and your Maximo server will trust each other. IBM documentation is very clear on how to do that. My particular system, I do have an API key, but I don't have the trust set up. So when I click Preview, I'm going to see a blank screen. I'm not getting any weather information here. But I can at least see the structure of what I would see if I viewed weather information from within the graphical applications. So be sure to check out the documentation for this particular feature. Alrighty, so now probably the most important administrative tool of all of them is the Scheduler Data Manager. Go ahead and open this up. So the Scheduler Data Manager is per schedule. So I'm going to fill my screen here with the schedules that are in my system. And I'm going to choose the now very familiar all work schedule. And this is a way of validating, ensuring, making things easier when it comes to working with the different scheduler applications. It gives you an opportunity to kind of validate what you're going to be looking at. So you can see across the top, it validates your calendar, your queries, the work dependency, and then resources. So let's just go ahead and take a look at each one of these tabs. Okay. So here's the calendar tab, and you can use the toggle switches here to enforce the different pieces of a calendar or not. And then it's a simple matter of validating the calendar and the shifts if you'd like. And you can see that I do have some warning messages here, and I can take care of what those messages have to do. So again, this is validating that the calendar that I'm going to be using on this particular schedule doesn't have any issues with it. Okay. Same thing with queries, right? It's interesting to me that if the queries are not running properly from the get-go, you'll get messages ahead of time. But this is just another way of validating the queries that you're using for your labor availability as well as the work orders and such you're pulling into the schedule. Over here on the Work tab, these are all of the work order details. And if there were any missing pieces or missing fields in the work orders that can make them more difficult to manage in the graphical applications, then you would run your validation here and see those issues as well. This is probably the biggest benefit to this tool right here, is making sure the work orders that are coming in have all the data elements that are filled out properly. Dependencies, if you have some start to finish and finish to start, different relationships there, this will validate those constraints as well. And again, you can set those up on the work order itself, or you can set that up within the graphical scheduler as well. And then finally, you have resources, and this is to validate the number of crafts and crews and even tools in some cases that you have available as well. And again, it's just validating that they exist in the system and are useful to you. And the very last graphical scheduler administration application is the Maximo Optimizer administration. So if you have it installed on your system, you can configure it here. I don't have it loaded on this particular system, so I can't show you very much. That's okay. If you're running the optimization engine part of Maximo, or you've got it installed, then you would be able to administrate it from here. So, okay, so that's it. Whole bunch of administrative applications for the graphical scheduling applications in Maximo. Each one has a kind of unique purpose, and you'll have to spend a little bit of time understanding exactly what they do and the effect that they have. But certainly the scheduling, the data manager application is really important to have good schedules in the system. Hope that was helpful, and we'll see you again next week.